It's 11 at night. The house is quiet, nothing is moving, and your dog is standing at the far wall, stiff-legged, ears forward, barking at absolutely nothing. You look, you see drywall, maybe a shadow, maybe a smudge. You tell them to stop, they ignore you completely, and then, just as suddenly as it started, they walk away and go back to sleep like nothing happened. Most people chalk it up to a bad dream, a creak in the pipes, or just being a little bit weird. But sensory neuroscience tells a completely different story. What your dog is responding to in those moments is almost certainly real. The question isn't whether something is there. The question is whether you could ever perceive it. Let's start with the obvious explanation because it sounds perfectly reasonable. Your dog heard something. A mouse in the walls, a car outside, someone walking past. But here's where that falls apart. When dogs bark at nothing, they aren't orienting toward sound. Watch their body carefully next time. Their gaze is locked, fixed on a single point. Their nose isn't working the air. They're looking. Behaviorists call this visual alerting posture. It's categorically different from the way a dog responds to a sound, which involves rapid ear rotation, head tilting, and scanning. This is a stare, and that changes everything about what we're dealing with. Here's what most people don't realize about dog vision. Your dog's eye contains a structure called the tapetum lucidum, a mirror-like layer of tissue sitting behind the retina that bounces incoming light back through the photoreceptors a second time. It's why their eyes glow in the dark. And it means that in low light conditions, dogs are collecting roughly 5 times more light than your human eye can process from the same scene. But that's only half the story. Dogs have a flicker fusion rate of approximately 70 to 80 frames per second. Yours is around 60. What that means in practical terms, your dog can resolve motion that is literally imperceptible to you. An insect moving across a wall in shadow, a reflection shifting as a car passes outside, a spider dropping along a thread you'd never see. These aren't invisible to your dog. They are crisp, high-contrast moving targets. From your dog's perspective, they are absolutely looking at something. They are just looking at it on a channel your brain doesn't receive. Now add the nose. A dog's olfactory system has roughly 300 million scent receptors. You have about 6 million. More critically, they possess a secondary structure called the vomeronasal organ, a chemical detection system buried above the roof of the mouth that operates entirely separately from smell as you understand it. It doesn't detect odors. It detects chemical signals left behind after a source has passed through. Meaning, your dog can detect that something was in a specific location, even if that thing left hours ago. The mouse that crossed the baseboard at 4 p.m., the moth that rested on the curtain at sunset. When your dog locks onto an empty corner and barks, they may be responding to a chemical ghost, a molecular signature that says something was here, hovering in a layer of reality your senses were never built to access. Before we go further, and I want to keep going because this gets genuinely strange, I need to talk about something that connects directly to everything we've covered. A dog with senses this extraordinary is running on hardware that needs real fuel. Most commercial dog food isn't designed around what dogs actually need. It's designed around what's cheap to manufacture. Fillers, artificial preservatives, low-grade protein that your dog's 300 million receptor nose can absolutely detect and frankly probably doesn't appreciate. That's why I want to tell you about the Complete Dog Diet and Homemade Meal Guide. This isn't a fad diet book. It's a science-backed, vet-informed guide with 20 chef-crafted, homemade recipes built around real ingredients, lean proteins like chicken, salmon, and turkey, whole grains, fresh vegetables, and age-specific feeding plans for puppies, adults, and seniors. There's a full, safe, and toxic foods chart, the one you'll want on your fridge,
portion gods by body weight, specifically designed for older dogs, because the dog standing alert in your hallway at midnight, running this extraordinary sensory system, deserves to run it on food you actually recognize. The link is in the description. Now, back to what's really happening when they stare at that wall.
Here's a question almost nobody asks. Why did this ability evolve in the first place? The answer takes you back roughly 15,000 years, to the same period when wolves began drifting toward the edges of human settlements. The proto-dogs that survived best weren't the biggest or the strongest. They were the ones most precisely attuned to environmental change. A flicker in the grass, a scent shift in the camp perimeter, a sound that didn't belong. Early humans couldn't detect these things reliably. Dogs could. This isn't an accident of anatomy. This is the original bargain. Researchers studying ancient human settlements across Central Asia have found hearth sites where early dogs were positioned at the outer edge of the sleeping circle, not inside it, not tucked in for warmth, but at the boundary. Guards, sensors, early warning systems. When your dog stands in the dark and alerts to something you can't see, they are running software that is 15,000 years old. Software that was specifically selected for because it kept humans alive. But now here's the study that reframes everything. In 2018, researchers at the University of Vienna conducted a series of trials testing dogs' responses to stimuli at the edge of their perceptual threshold. They found that dogs don't just detect low-level stimuli, they weight them. A dog who has been reinforced for alerting becomes progressively more sensitive over time. Their threshold drops. They begin responding to signals that even other dogs might filter out. In other words, if you've ever reacted to your dog's barking, walked over, looked where they pointed, said their name, you may have trained them to have a hair trigger. You became part of the feedback loop. The dog alerts, you respond. The alert felt meaningful, so the threshold for the next alert gets lower. Behavioral researchers call this sensitization, and it means your dog's barking at nothing may not be random at all. It may be a learned behavior, shaped partly by how you responded the last 50 times. And now the part most owners never consider at all. Veterinary neurologists have documented a specific category of involuntary alerting behavior called focal seizure activity, where a small electrical misfiring in the brain causes a dog to fixate on a point in space and sometimes vocalize. These episodes are brief. They look exactly like a dog barking at nothing, and they have no obvious physical symptom that owners would recognize. The dog appears to snap out of it and carry on normally. Research published in the Journal of Veterinary Internal Medicine found that focal seizure activity is significantly underdiagnosed in dogs precisely because owners interpret these episodes as behavioral quirks. If the episodes are frequent, more than a few times a week, or if your dog seems briefly disoriented afterward, unable to locate you for a moment, unusually tired after the episode, that's something a veterinarian needs to know about. Your dog cannot tell you their brain misfired. The bark at the empty wall might be the only signal they can give you. There's one more layer, and it's the one people find hardest to accept. Dogs read you. A 2021 study out of the Dog Cognition Lab at the University of Portsmouth demonstrated that dogs respond to their owner's low-level stress cues before the owner is consciously aware of them. Subtle changes in body posture, micro-shifts in breathing pattern, the chemical composition of cortisol already seeping into the air before you've registered that you're anxious. If you came home unsettled, a difficult day, a low-grade unease you can't name, your dog may bark at the corner because the room itself smells different to them, not because something is there, because something is off, and they have no other way to flag it. You are part of their environment. When your chemistry changes, their world changes with it. So, the next time your dog stands at the wall at midnight, rigid and certain, barking into the dark, don't just tell them to stop. Look at what they're looking at. Consider what they might be detecting that you simply weren't built to perceive. Watch for the pattern, count the frequency, notice whether they seem like themselves after. Because 15,000 years of evolution built your dog to notice exactly what you miss. Their bark at nothing is almost never about nothing. It's about everything happening just below the threshold of what you can see. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, they're not sounding an alarm for you. They're sounding it for themselves. And that's when you need to listen the most. If you cook for your dog, this is the guide to start with, is linked below. If this changed how you hear your dog's bark, subscribe and drop a comment. Tell me what they bark at in your house and when.